Thank you, David. Thanks all for staying on. We've taken a look from really the other end of the perspective of Andrew. Andrew's looking at it from a device developer's perspective. We're looking at it from the supply chain perspective itself. We are going to look at it in terms of the industry perspective of the supply chain, and Nick is going to follow on and look at it from someone who's getting into the supply chain. Oh, the obligatory side about MEM, we're just marine energy focused, and from the perspective of today, we actually help people in the industry, help people get into the industry. So we have some experience of the way that they see the industry. And I generally come to really two conclusions about the way that they see the industry. You get one group that feels it's a market now, they want to be in it, they're expecting to make money in it now, don't expect to invest a lot in it, and seen as a profit center for them right now. At the other end of the spectrum, you have a group of more strategic companies that see it as the opportunity for tomorrow. They have some investment appetite in order to get into the sector, and they see it as tomorrow's bottom line, not today's bottom line. You have a myriad, obviously, in between that. Some of the questions that we ask the supply chain when we start to talk to them, because they have full of enthusiasm when you talk to them initially, is, what are you doing? Are you going for gold here, or do you want to make the shovels that actually go and dig the gold? And we have a series of debates about what their intentions are, how they're going to access the marketplace in terms of an entry mode. You have to convince them that they've got to do the hard 9 yards also. You've got to do the conferencing, the networking, the speaking, all that hard work. It doesn't come easy for the supply chain. And very often, the trigger for getting people into the supply chain is usually some third-party funding somewhere that helps build relationships. There are other assistance streams for the supply chain that can help them get their product perhaps aligned a little more closely to the needs of the industry. The entry barriers and the opportunities, firstly, knowledge. If they have the right set of knowledge skills, or they can acquire them, they're halfway there. If they don't have that set of knowledge skills, it's going to be really quite difficult for them to enter. Available funding within the company also helps, just a little. The lack of marine experience at times can be a real barrier to some of the supply chain. Whilst they might have some of the right products that would fit, or services that would fit into the supply chain, they sometimes just don't have that marine experience that allows them to translate what they've got into the language that the device developers want to hear. Location obviously plays a part. We've heard a lot about location this afternoon. If you're in a marine energy park, you have an advantage for sure, because all the attention is there. The wave and tidal test sites, locations near those also help. And deployment access, we've just talked about harbours, where we can deploy from a moment ago. Bottom line is that the industry has got to do two things. It has to increase its system efficiency, and it's got to reduce its system cost in order to get to the cost of energy that we're looking for. So the supply chain has to recognise really early on that they have to be part of that. And there was a great quote from, I think it was Andrew Tyler, when he was with MCT, and he said, only about 40% of the costs are in my control. The rest are in the supply chain, so they have to come with us on that journey. In terms of looking forward to the journey, what does it look like? Well, I think it's about where there are mutual benefits of cost sharing and learning between supply chain and developers, where there's some uniqueness of what the supply chain can offer in combination with what the developers got, where there are some location-dependent activities. And the relationship models, conventional contractor-supplier models are still out there. Personally, I believe we have to move much more towards partnering type models, where there is an emphasis on literally quite that, working together much more. Development project partnering, we're seeing a lot more of that now, even across technologies. Manufacturing partnering, we're seeing more of that. We're seeing the OEMs come in as well. What are the issues for the supply chain? Well, I think they're both issues for the supply chain and for the developers. Some of them that we see revolve around IP. Initially being protective of their own IP, understanding where to share IP, understanding where actually the supply chain should or should not be involved. I guess the other issue is really here, when you talk to the supply chain, they want to get involved. One of the issues for them is that there's little commitment of certainty at the moment in this sector. We still are not quite there yet for the supply chain to be able to see a real market coming forward. We're getting there, and everything we do in terms of step change helps us. So in conclusion, for the supply chain, they probably have to be niche. They probably have to get a clear strategy of how they're going to get into the sector and with whom in the sector. They need to have a long-term view. They more than likely need to partner in some way and in some description. And most of all, they need to be innovative. Thank you very much. Nick.